The District 10 race. We'd like to thank the Ellis County Republican Party, Chairman Dan Davis over here for sponsoring the debate. We also want to thank Congressman Joe Barton, who has provided the venue for tonight, paid for that, and the Ellis County Republican women who provided the refreshments for tonight. And there's coffee and treats over there. Help yourself, courtesy of the Ellis County Republican women. Let me go over a few of the rules. First of all, my name is Neil White, and I'll be moderating the forum tonight. And I'd like to introduce our candidates who are running for the District 10 State Representative race, starting nearest to me, TJ Fabby. And John Ray. The questions have been put together by me, and as of right now, I'm the only one who knows what questions are going to be asked. The candidates do not know. They weren't told in advance, and this is the first of 3 debates. The next one will take place next week in Waxahachie at the Waxahachie Civic Center on February 18th, and we will conclude this debate forum on February 28th at the Midlothian Conference Center. Each debate will have different questions, so I encourage everyone to come to each one of the debates to hear different information that's going to be put forth by the candidates. What we're going to be doing tonight is the candidates have already drawn for speaking positions. The first person who's up for the question will receive 3 minutes to provide an answer, and then the other 3 challengers will have 2 minutes each. The next question will rotate with the first speaker up receiving 3 minutes, followed by 2, 2, and 2, and so on until we finish all 8 questions. At the end of the 8 formal questions, we're going to be taking a couple questions from the audience. The candidates will have a chance to address your concerns if we didn't cover them in my questions. And then we'll wrap it up by each of the candidates making final comments. And please, again, mark your calendars for February 18th in Waxahachie, February 28th in Midlothian. Each venue gets progressively larger, so we want people to come out and get more information. This is a very important race, and we're doing this. Thank you very much, Dan. Thank you, Ellis County Republican Women, because we need voter participation, and we need the opportunity to provide these 4 candidates the opportunity to get their message across to the voters. And this is great that we're able to do this. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Republican Women. Okay, starting it off. Who drew number 1? John Ray's going to start us off. Who's number 2? Followed by Duke. Jake, you're 3rd, and TJ's number 4. The first question, and I'm going to throw a monkey wrench into them because they don't think they know this one's coming. This is a 2-part question. It's not a gotcha question. I know we promised no gotcha question. State representative is an unpaid elected office requiring a minimum of 6 months away from your family and business while the legislature is in session. First, why are you seeking this office? And secondly, historically, freshman representatives have had very little impact on the legislative process. If elected, how do you plan to be relevant as a freshman lawmaker?
Okay. Thanks, Neil. With respect to the first part of the question, why am I doing this? It's really a 2-part answer. One is that I really grew up under humble circumstances. I spent the first 8 years of my life living in a mobile home on the west side of Waxahachie, just outside the city limits, and one of those 2 large mobile home parks that's still over there. And our Texas system has been very good to me. I have been able to, go out and start a business and get an education and achieve financial security for myself and start a family, raise a couple of kids. And I think that those opportunities have been afforded to me here in this state. I wouldn't have found anywhere else. I appreciate that. I'm thankful for it. And I feel that it's incumbent upon me to help preserve that for my kids. I've got 2 kids, and I want to make sure that those opportunities continue for them into the future and for their lives and for my grandkids and for your grandkids. And additionally, the other part of that is I grew up with very traditional Christian values. I still adhere to those traditional Christian values, and I believe it very much in the tithe. And I believe that it's incumbent upon me to give back. God has blessed me, and I need to be a good steward of those blessings, and I need to give back. So that's why I'm seeking that part. And Neil, do you want to go ahead and answer the second part?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree that being a freshman state representative is probably akin to a situation where you're supposed to be seen and not heard in a lot of instances. The way I plan to be relevant is I study. I learn my facts. I learn my figures. I try to find out what's going on. I've already gotten the rules, the procedural rules for the Texas House of Representatives. I plan to study that and to look into that and to look for ways that I can sponsor legislation or to make an impact right away. And I will go down and work very hard. I'm an extremely tenacious, hard worker, and I'm not afraid of 70 and 80-hour work weeks. And what I tend to do is to do my homework and to just flat work my backside off and try to make a difference. And that's what I'll do.
There is no one in this room that is more patriotic than me. You may be as patriotic, but I love this country. I love what we have. I love where we came from. I love the vision that our founding fathers had. And I may be one of the few people around that's not a cynic. I love everybody. I trust you until you give me a reason not to. You need $20, tell me you need $20, I'll hand it to you. I trust people. Don, get the money in. I trust people. And I believe in this country. I believe that we have not gone so far down a path of destruction that we can't get it back. But it's going to take all of us. It's going to take people who don't want to be a politician, who don't want to go down to Austin and be somebody. It's going to take citizen statesmen who simply love the country and love the people and are smart and willing to do what needs to be done. And I think I am those things. As far as Austin, last two sessions I've been in Austin a lot. Testified before several committees down there. I've got a lot of friends in Austin. And John's right. Mr. Mayor's right. The freshman representative, you're not electing the new chair of House Appropriations. You're electing a freshman senator. Our office will be the third stall in the first bank of the men's room behind the third elevator in the annex. I mean, we're not going to be anything special down there. But I believe that anybody that goes down there finds like-minded people and is true and just and believes in what they're doing. I believe that we can make a difference. And I believe that this country is not so far gone that we can't get it back. But again, it takes all of us. In this election, there's over 100,000 people registered, and there's going to be 12,000 people elect your state representative. Not enough. We need more people to vote. Thank you.
My stepdad took me flying when I was 7 years old. And when he took me flying, I was hooked on flying. And so we decided at that point, what's the best way to go be a fighter pilot? To go to the Naval Academy. So from the age of 7, I've been wanting to serve my country. And that's all I've ever known. So in July 6 of 1988, I took the oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, and I've been doing it ever since. So I've never passed up an opportunity to serve. And this opportunity, I think, surprised most of us that this seat was going to open up. And if you have something that you believe you can deliver to your community, to your district, then you have a moral obligation to stand up and be counted. And what I admire about these three men up here standing next to me is that they've all done that. And it takes some gumption to do it. And it's really hard work, and I admire them for it. So just like them, we have a difference that we think we can make. We think we're the best qualified to do it. And we just want to serve because we know full well there's no indemnification for it. And that's fine with us. Now, as far as going down there as a freshman and being super powerful, that's probably not going to happen. But how do you make an impact in a place where you're 1 in 150 and you're brand new at it? Well, the answer to that is you have a good outgoing personality. You like to meet people. You like to educate yourself on the issues because they're going to know full well if you don't educate yourself on the issues, you're not going to have any strength to support your opinions down there. So you have to work with 150 folks. Chances are it's going to be 95 to 100 Republicans. You educate yourself really well. You show that you're willing to work hard, burn the midnight oil, stay at the office until the wee hours of the night, and then you form an argument that is unassailable. And then you get them to go along with you and combine together to forward a conservative agenda down in Austin. So I think that's how you make this difference. Thank you.
Can everybody hear me? I don't need this microphone. I just want to introduce myself first. My name is TJ Fabby. I'm a lifelong resident of Ellis County. I grew up in Red Oak. I live in Wasatch now. Married with 2 children. My wife is right back there at the back, Ashley, and my 2 children, Jordan and Jimmy. And they are my #1 volunteers in this campaign. I couldn't do it without them. The reason why I'm running is because I believe we're losing our country. I believe we're losing our freedoms. I believe we're losing our children's futures. This government is completely out of control. They're spending money like crazy, saddling our kids and grandkids with mountains and mountains of debt. And our kids don't deserve that. They deserve something better. They deserve to live free, and that means free from debt. So that's the reason why I'm running. As far as going down to Austin, I've already worked with people in Austin. I actually helped to craft a bill that would have nullified Obamacare in Texas and protected the people of Texas from Obamacare. But that bill died in a calendars committee because we have a moderate, if you want to call him a moderate, he's actually a liberal, that's the Speaker of the Texas House who appoints moderate or liberal chairs to chair the committees. And so what we need to do is send solid conservatives down there to fight that agenda that's being pushed in the Texas House. And I will team up with conservative lawmakers like Jonathan Stickland, who was rated the most conservative lawmaker in the state of Texas. And I will team up with Giovanni Capriglione, with Matt Schaefer, and work with them to pass conservative legislation that will protect your freedoms, protect your liberties, and get the state of Texas to a point where we can stand up and push back against this federal government. That's what I believe is very important, that we start pushing back and asserting our state sovereignty. Thank you.
Okay, our second question, Duke Bird will start with this one. This is the first of 2 questions on state transportation issues. During the past decade, transportation infrastructure has been a hot topic in Texas as our growing state struggles to fund needed roadways. In the past, Governor Perry has tried pushing through legislation calling for toll roads to solve this dilemma. The question: are toll roads the solution for our transportation infrastructure needs, and under what scenario would you support a toll road? Please keep your comments focused on addressing toll roads only, as the next question also will address transportation issues. And Duke, you get to start this one.
But my notes have both. I don't need mine. Toll roads are kind of a conundrum. I'm very quickly, I'm going to say, aren't toll roads like the ultimate user tax? Yes. I mean, seriously, look, stay with me for a second. Aren't they the ultimate user tax? You drive on a toll road, you pay for the toll road. The people in another state, another county, another city, they don't have to pay for that road because you're paying for it. That sounds like a decent argument, but we've allowed ourselves to get into a situation where it doesn't quite work that way. Right now, the toll roads that are working and the toll roads that have been proposed are being sponsored not by the people, the constituents. They're being sponsored by the government. They're being imposed on the people, and they're being run by foreign companies. All of that is not good. A toll road, if we're going to have one, if Ennis decided they were going to build a toll road between here and Waxahachie, and they were willing to acquire the right-of-way, and the voters voted for it, that type of scenario kind of works. It's not going to happen, but in order for a toll road to exist, and for it to exist properly, it has to be voter-supported, constituent-supported. It can't be run down our throats, and it can't be run by a foreign company. It's got to be homegrown. It's got to be local folks.
Well, Duke's right. Duke's right. They are a user tax. It's a tax road. One of the obligations of the state of Texas is to provide for a free road system that will provide all the necessary transportation needs for the rest of the state. I don't believe in toll roads. They've seen their day. I believe the law of unintended consequences, that it might have been a good idea. We're not sure about that at the time, but it's turned out not to be such a good idea. It's an obligation of the state to pay for out of the taxes that they take from the gas tax and the vehicle registration tax to pay for the roads. We've got enough money in there. I'm against toll roads. Thank you.
I echo the sentiments of my two opponents here. I'm against toll roads. I will fight tooth and nail to stop them from ever coming into HD10. Texas has a big transportation problem. We are #1 in the nation in road debt. And our lawmakers think that we can keep just throwing money at this. And the reason why we have toll roads now is because of something called diversion of funds. We have dedicated funds like the gas tax, like the vehicle registration tax, that are being dipped into. That these creepy politicians start picking their hands in there and saying we're going to use that money for something else now, when it was dedicated for this. And it's not just transportation, it's education and all kinds of other things. But I would like to introduce a bill or sponsor a bill that would stop the diversion of funds. If we have dedicated funds, keep them dedicated to that specific purpose. And it would stop this loss of money and stop this growth of debt. That's what my solution would be.
I don't support toll roads. I don't support foreign ownership or management of toll roads. I think we need a pay-as-you-go infrastructure system in Texas. I think we can get there. I've got a plan. I'm going to trust Neil that his follow-up question is going to give me an opportunity to discuss that plan. So I'll talk about diversions next, and I'll give you a few of my 2 minutes back. To give you an example of this toll road issue, I believe in the last session there was a bill introduced to create something called a century bond, which is a bond that takes 100 years to pay back, and the proceeds of that bond was to be used to build toll roads. And of course, the useful life of a road is nowhere near 100 years. So that's silly. We need a pay-as-you-go system. We don't need toll roads. We sure don't need century bonds. And I wouldn't support anything of that nature.
Okay, Jake gets to start the third question, and the third question is, other options that have been proposed to address transportation needs have ranged from a statewide referendum to changing the allocation of fuel taxes to be used for roads only, to using rainy day funds for roads. What do you believe is the best direction for the state to complete its road projects? And if elected, how would you work to gain support for those initiatives?
Good question. Well, we've got enough money as it is in the taxes that are being taken out of your pocket to pay for these roads. Number one is vehicle sales tax. Last year it generated $3.6 billion for the state of Texas. It went to the general fund. How much does Texas Department of Transportation say that they need every year to pay for the roads? $4 billion. So you take the gas tax, you take the registration tax, you take the vehicle sales tax, and you have more than $4 billion. Now, when Texas DOT says you need $4 billion, I'd caution you on this. I was in the Navy for 20 years, and I know how contractors work, and I know how the government works. And when they ask for $4 billion, they're either going to ask for 6, or it could really only cost 2. I would audit the Texas DOT and ask them exactly what they need, and I'd ask them to justify what roads they need to pay for, and then I'd say, here's your money. But we have enough money in the coffers that should be going directly from vehicle use taxes to pay for our roads. End of story. It's a pretty simple solution, and I'm not sure why it hasn't been taken care of yet. But it's something that's got to be looked at, and we've got enough money in the coffers right now. So I'd go down there and go to Austin, and I can guarantee you that there's plenty of conservative folks just like you in this room and the 4 of us standing up here that are looking to do the same thing. It has gotten way out of hand. I don't like riding on the toll road any more than anybody else does in North Dallas. It's just not the right. It's a tax. So we'll take care of this down in Austin. I guarantee there's a lot of good folks like me down there who are willing to start putting the money where it's supposed to go and stop the diversions into the general fund. Thank you.
I said, I brought up the diversions. Obviously, we need to stop diversions. We have the money. If we can just keep it dedicated to these purposes, we can take care of our infrastructure. That's what I want to do. Introduce a bill to end diversions of funds. Another thing I want to do, stop the waste. There's so much waste in transportation. I'm sure you've all taken a trip down to Austin recently and seen that there's actually 4 huge rest stops that are now built between here and Austin. We don't need these rest stops anymore, folks. Every 5 to 10 minutes you have private businesses, truck stops, gas stations, where people can stop, trucks can stop. And if we do need a place where trucks can stop, then we just need a little place, because most of them sleep in their cabs. We can put a little toilet out there, just like in the old days, whenever we were all, well, I'm 32, but even when I was growing up, we just had toilets on the side of the road where you could stop and on a picnic table. A lot cheaper than the ones they're building now. They've got flat screen TVs and leather sofas. We don't need all that. We need to stop the waste. Our children are going into debt up to their eyeballs. We've got to stop the waste.
I mentioned in my prior answer we need a pay-as-you-go system. I agree with the number. It's about $4 billion to $5 billion per year that TxDOT needs to have a pay-as-you-go transportation infrastructure system for our state. We need to direct $4 to $5 billion more per year to catch up on our roadways and to keep up with the growth. We have about 25 million people in Texas now, 25.5 million. We're projected to have a little over 46 million by the year 2060. We need this $4 to $5 billion per year to build these roads. The diversion on the gas tax is valued right now about $650 million. So I agree with we need to be fiscally responsible to stop that diversion. We have a constitutional requirement, state constitutional requirement to direct that money to build roads and maintain roads and police roads, and we need to follow that constitutional requirement. We need to get back on budget. That's $650 million of the money we need. The next is I agree with phasing in over time using the vehicle sales tax, which is about $3.3 to $3.6 billion per year to fund the rest of that gap. There'll be a proposition on the ballot in November to use $1 billion of the Economic Stabilization Fund, the Rainy Day Fund. If that passes, that would be additional money that would go toward it. If not, then we've got the end of the diversion and the phase-in of the vehicle sales tax to help fund those roads on a pay-as-you-go system without debt.
I'm sorry, TJ Sandy.
You
Go
got
ahead.
I
Got
got
ahead. My bad.
I agree with him.
I'm not even going to talk about what they said because all three of them were right. I agree. The issue, though, think about it, the diversion of funds that we keep talking about here, it's a shell game. And it's a shell game that they've been playing for a long time. They do it with education. They do it with the DOT funds. They do it across the board. And if we took that $3.2 billion from sales tax on vehicles and we moved it straight into TxDOT for the roads, then it comes out of the general fund of something else. So I'm going to say this several times now. I'm going to say that it's not so much the taxes as it is the spending that we need to work on. If we pulled that 3.2 and moved it over to TxDOT, we have pulled it out of something else. I may get a chance later to tell you that all of the money from the Texas lottery goes exactly where it was supposed to go. It goes to education. However, they take that money from education and then they go back with the money they were funding and move it back to the general fund. So it's a shell game. And I agree that these earmarks, these funds need to go where they're going. And we need to get that part straight. And I absolutely would support a bill and carry a bill and sign on to a bill that would require no diversion of these funds, that they go where they're earmarked. But at the same time, I'm going to back up and say it one more time. It's not the taxes that are hurting us. It's the spending. We need to get the spending under control so that we can make these things do what they're supposed to do. Thank you.
TJ gets the next question. Actually, the next two questions involve education. First is the issue of standardized testing and its impact on teachers' ability to provide instruction beyond teaching for a test, which has been an ongoing debate in Texas. What is your stance on standardized testing, its impact on local control, and if elected, what will you do to address those issues?
My stance on standardized testing, I oppose it. I believe that it ties teachers' hands. It doesn't let them do what they're good at doing. Teachers are good at teaching. That's why they teach. And we need to let more teachers teach. Kids are being treated like numbers in our schools, and they're not numbers, they're kids. And every one of them is different. You can't treat them all like they're the same and to expect them all to be the same. But I think that's what the collectivist mentality wants us to think, that everybody's the same and everybody should be the same and everybody should strive to be the same. I homeschool my kids. Me and my wife, we homeschool our kids because we've given up on the public education system. It's not that we've given up on teachers, it's that we've given up on the system. The system won't let teachers teach. So we've decided to educate our own kids. And we don't use standardized testing in our house. We use real education. We go out and educate our kids, and we take them to places and take them to the park, take them to the zoo, take them to museums, and sit and let them use the computer and learn how to use the computer and really navigate it. And that's what I would like to see. More teachers being able to teach their kids, more control over the classrooms in teachers' hands. And the most control in parents' hands. Parents should have more control over how their kids are educated in Texas. And that's what I'll push for in the state legislature.
I have a lot of problems with the standardized testing system, the accountability system, and I would like to see us do something different. You know, and I think that using a standardized test makes you have to, it robs teachers of creativity. It gets us down to the lowest common denominators. It makes us adopt a common curriculum throughout the state, and I don't think that's appropriate. I mean, we have a big, diverse state, and what is good and important for kids in Beaumont is not necessarily good and important for kids in Amarillo, and we need to get back to creativity. We need to get back to individualism. We need to get back to patriotism. We need to get back to Judeo-Christian values in the classroom, and I don't think that our standardized tests support that. This is a really difficult issue that the state has struggled with for quite a while. Anytime that I think we struggle with something, I think what we need to do is just inject some free market principles in there. And what I'd like to do is increase choice, support competition, and instead of using a standardized test to measure whether schools are succeeding in teaching kids, let's use free market principles and let's figure out a way to accurately, uniformly report how well schools are doing in putting kids in college, and how well schools are doing in putting kids in vocational courses, and how well schools are doing in putting kids in jobs, and how those graduates of certain schools are doing 5 years out and 10 years out. Let's just use the free market. We have those measures. That's the real world. Those are the real world measures of how well schools are educating kids. Let's just figure out a way to collect that data and report it accurately.
Standardized testing, let's see if we can come into agreement here. How many of you believe that every child in every school should be able to do 2 + 2 = 4? How many of you believe that every child in every school should be able to spell cat? Okay? I've just given you the first 2 questions on a standardized test. Okay? The testing itself is not killing us. What we've done with the testing is killing us. And if anybody, I urge you to speak to me afterwards on this. I think all of us are going to hang around, but The test itself is not so much the bugaboo as what we've done with the test and the way we've done it. Our legislature over the past 20 years has taken away the local control of our communities. And they've said, this is what you're going to teach, and this is how you're going to measure that, and you're going to measure it with this series of tests. And what it has done is it's placed the kids in El Paso the same as the kids in Abilene, the kids in Waxahachie the same as the kids in Austin, and we're not. We are diverse. We are different. We've taken away creativity. In Midlothian, we use a system called Working on the Work, which allows our teachers to come in every morning and make teaching fun and not worry about the test. 7 years ago, Midlothian School Board said, we do not care about test scores, period. Don't care. Couldn't care less about it. You know what happened when that message got to all of our teachers and got to all of our kids and got to all our administrators? Our attendance rate went up. Kids like going to school. Our teacher retention rate dropped. Teachers like staying with us. Things got better. And the test scores got better also. Tell you about testing. You test once a year and you test really hard, you lose the last month of school. I have a very good friend, and he told me something one time. He said, Duke, I grew up on a farm, and one thing I learned was that you will do a whole lot better with your milk cows, your dairy cows, if you will milk them a little bit every day instead of a whole bunch once a year. You'd get better results if we just take it and not do the big, hard, standardized test once a year.
The standardized tests are, if a child wants to go to college, did he get in the college he wanted to go to? The standardized test is, if he didn't want to go to college, is he ready for the job market the day he graduates high school? That's the standardized test. Standardized tests are a function of the smartest people in the room, whether they be in Washington, D.C. in most cases, right? That's where they tend to go. The smartest people in the room go to Washington, D.C. And then from on high, they say, here's your money, and here's the strings attached to it. That's how this happened. And some of the smartest people in the room also happen to be in Austin. I will proclaim that I will never be that guy, as most people who know me will attest to. So when you have the planning, central planning in Austin, central planning in Washington, D.C., and it takes away the local control, you're going to fail. So the standardized test should be, why do we have local school boards? Because they know exactly what the requirements are for that particular district. Like John said, Beaumont, Amarillo, down the valley, all these places are different. They have different demographics. They have different needs. The local control is where where our standardized test should occur. And if the school district wants to use its test, its true market success is how many wanted to go to college, got in, how many wanted to enter the job market, got into the job. Thanks.
Next, we're going to be starting with John Ray. For the past 20 years, the Texas legislature has kicked the can down the road when it comes to addressing how to define the equitable funding wording in the state constitution, which has resulted in a barrage of lawsuits over public education. What are your ideas on how the state should meet this challenge, and if elected, what education measures would you vote for, as well as what education matters would you vote against?
Yeah, this is one of the most difficult issues I think the next legislative session will face. Is there's a pending lawsuit over the constitutionality of our current school funding system. This is a very difficult issue. There are proposals out there to completely change the way we fund schools, to take away or to de-emphasize the property tax and move toward consumption taxes. I think that ultimately what I'm going to be looking at, and this is an issue that we've all got to study, and it's not susceptible to an easy solution. So I want to tell you just generally the principles that I will look at as I face this issue in the legislature if I'm elected. And that is, I want to put the students and academics first. Okay? Any proposal, I'm going to look at it and say, does this favor and support education of children in the classroom, the fundamentals? Does it support that? I don't want it to be excessively used for administration or for things that do not result in education of our children. So I'm going to look at education of our children first. I'm going to emphasize that first. Next, I want to support the in-classroom teacher. That is the next thing that I really want to support when we look at the funding system. And the next thing I want to do is I want to make sure that we are not shortchanging our rural school districts, because I think that I think that's the heart of America. I think out there and we have so many rural school districts. We have lots of rural school districts right in this district that are doing a wonderful job educating kids. And I would like to see people retain our historic American values, which they have from living and working in rural areas in America. I want to make sure that even though traditionally these areas haven't had the huge tax base, I want to make sure that they still have the funding they need so that folks can stay in these rural areas and know that their kids can be educated and they can instill in them those great American values of patriotism, love of country, love of God, love of traditional family values, because that's what we need.
I don't think we have an issue with the money to fund public schools. I think there's some things that can be streamlined. I have some great ideas, I think, on how to save some money on funding our public schools. What we have is a system of inequity. The Texas Constitution requires for an equitable distribution of the funds. And let me give you an example. Quite a few years ago, in 2006, I believe it was, they came up with a new formula for school funding called target revenue. Before that, we were on the formula revenue. Under formula revenue, the size of your district, the value of your district, determined how much money you had for your kids. Midlothian's about $3.2 billion. Waxahachie's about $2.8 billion. So Midlothian got a little bit more money for their kids because we had more value per student. When they went to target revenue, oddly enough, they picked almost an arbitrary number, and you ended up with, in some cases, even more inequity. You take Little Avalon down the street there, okay, and you take Midlothian. Every classroom in Midlothian now receives, under target revenue, about $25,000 to $28,000 more per classroom, only because of the way they picked the numbers for target revenue. So the formula that they're using right now is arbitrary. It's not going to stand up. The judge has already ruled that this is not equitable. They're just going to have to come up with a way to figure out how to divvy up the funds again. And I think that there's enough money there to do it, and I think that I have some ways to save some money. I don't think that's going to be the issue. The issue is going to be how do we fund it. And as a society, the core question for us has to be, does that child in Avalon deserve the same education as that child in Highland Park? And that's a tough question. It's not as easy as it sounds. Highland Park is a 41 district. They're a Robin Hood district. And 7 or 8 years ago, they were short at one of their campuses, one of their elementary schools. They needed some money. They didn't have any money because it was all going back to the state. So they did a bake sale and raised $3 million in Highland Park. So that's the question we're going to have to ask, and we're going to have to get comfortable with is, do these kids in the rural districts deserve the same education as the kids in the rich districts? Thank you.
Neil, would you repeat the question?
Sure. For the past 20 years, the Texas legislature has kicked the can down the road when it comes to addressing how to define the equitable funding wording in the state constitution, which has resulted in a barrage of lawsuits over public education funding.
I'm good. That's what equitable funding. The property tax is not equitable funding. The property tax is not a fair tax. The property tax does not provide for equitable funding of education based on its populace. The Constitution says that we all are taking a part in an efficient public school system, and the property tax does not do that. And for the last 4 sessions, we've had lawsuits challenging the constitutionality, and 3 of those, they failed, and we had to go and rewrite it again. Over the course of 6 years, we can phase out the property tax and go to a consumption tax. $9 billion of property tax last year went to M&O for school district, M&O funding for school districts. Now, if you raise the sale tax 2%, depending on the number that you talk to and the agency that you talk to, that will provide $9 billion. Additionally, so we're talking about 2 issues here. We're talking about home ownership. The state of Texas is 45th in the country because of our property taxes. We're the 3rd highest property tax rate in the entire country, behind New Jersey and Massachusetts. So let's get away with that. Provide true property rights for the citizens of this state. Increase home ownership. You're going to increase your tax base. You're going to increase jobs. You go to a consumption tax, and we all share the burden of providing for an efficient funding for schools. We can also audit some of our agencies to make sure that we're spending it right, because we're spending 1.4 times our enrollment rate on money that's going to education. Why is that? Check and see what our rates are on teachers to non-teachers. The ratio is now 1 to 1. There's your problem. We got a lot of fixing to do, and we can start with property tax. Thanks.
First, let me say how awesome it is to hear another candidate talking about property taxes. I've been talking about this for the last 6 years, since I got involved in the political process. We have to eliminate property taxes first and foremost because it prohibits property ownership. You never own your property, and if we're going to be a free society, then we have to allow property ownership. So then we look at the cost of property taxes. You have the appraisal districts that you have to pay for. You have appraisal boards that oversee the appraisal districts that you have to pay for. You have litigation costs when people dispute their appraisals that you have to pay for. That's a lot of cost that's wrapped up in this property tax. And if we would move to a consumption tax, I agree with Jake, we need to go to a consumption tax. You don't have all that cost anymore. So you're right off the bat, you're saving money. And you're allowing true property ownership. Secondly, I believe we need to abolish the Texas Education Agency. There's no reason to have it. We have a state board of education that is an elected board that can do all take over all the duties of the Texas Education Agency, and you're saving money right off the bat right there too. Plus, the board is an elected board. It's accountable to the people, unlike the Texas Education Agency, which is an appointed board, not accountable to the people. Third, we need to, let's get back to that thing we were talking about before, diversion of funds. You remember we were sold the Texas lottery because we were told that it was going to pay for public education. And now it's not. And why? Because they are diverting those funds. Let's rededicate those funds from the Texas lottery to paying for our schools. That's 3 things right there that I want to do right off the bat to take care of our public education system. And if you elect me, I will go down there and fight with other lawmakers that want to do the same thing, and we'll get it done. Thank you.
The next 2 questions, all 4 candidates asked me to put on the list, so if you get a bad answer, don't blame me. Let's see, Duke, you're first up on this one. Border security is a federal issue, yet one Washington has failed to address, especially in regards to Texas's needs. Although a federal issue, as a state representative, what do you think the state legislature could and should do to address our state's border security issues?
If you read the polls that are out, and if you look at things, you find that immigration is polling number 1 in Texas, and it's polling like number 35 nationwide. It's moved way down the list. That's why you're not going to see Congress get on this issue this time. Okay? But in Texas, it's polling number 1. Now, I'll tell you why. We have 4 times the Hispanic population than the average in the rest of the country. In Texas, illegal immigration costs us about $12 billion annually, not just for the school systems, but for health care, for infrastructure, for law enforcement. $12.1 billion. That's a lot of money. We have got to secure the border. Period. And all 4 of us are going to say the same thing. I can guarantee you that. We've got to secure the border. We'll use the Texas Guard to do it, and we'll send the federal government a bill. It's their responsibility, but we've got to take care of it. The second piece of the issue is, once we secure the border, what are we going to do then? Once we've got that thing locked off, once we've got all of our illegals identified, what are we going to do with them? Folks, if you'll think about it, if you snap your fingers right this very second and every Hispanic was gone from Texas tonight, tomorrow we wouldn't get a house built, we wouldn't get a road built, we wouldn't get hospitality in the hotels, we wouldn't get anything. The fact of the matter is, we have more jobs in Texas than we have people that are here legally. And we have forced a situation that forces them to come up here illegally. I want to stop that. I want to seal the border. I want to provide for an efficient, fair guest visa system. Right now, if a Mexican national wants to come to the United States, it takes them at least a couple of months to even attempt to get a visa. If a Canadian wants to come down, they go to the border, they hand them a passport, we scan the passport and say, this person's not a criminal. What are you here for? Say, I've got a job in Buffalo. They say, God bless you, come into our country and pay our taxes. We don't do that on the southern border for several different reasons. We have got to get more efficient, and we've got to be able to allow some guest visa worker program here to get these people in here where they're, number one, paying taxes. Number two, they got a valid Social Security number. Number three, they're paying for their driver's license. They're part of the system. And number four, and this is most important to me, I'm not offering amnesty. I'm not offering citizenship. That's why this is failing in Washington, because the Democrats are pushing for citizenship. I don't want citizenship. They don't want citizenship. They just want to have a job. No amnesty, no citizenship, no free ride, simply an efficient system for a hardworking, legal Mexican national to come into our state and do a job and us benefit from it.
The Constitution of the United States says that the federal government will prevent invasion of the United States on all its borders. They failed. They're not doing it. So what do we have to do? We have to do it on our own. I'm not ashamed to say that we will do it on our own. Texans do this kind of stuff all the time. You don't have it? I got it. Stand aside. We'll send you the bill. So I've got some folks and some friends in DPS, one of them who runs the Fusion Center in Austin, which is a pretty remarkable place. It looks like Nora. Screens all over the place. What do we have going for us? We've got exceptional high tech. We can put strategic borders, strategic fencing in. Listen, anybody who's raised cattle knows that they don't all just go in different directions. They follow a trail. The folks who are coming up here follow a trail. We know where those trails are. We put fences where the trails aren't, and then we put men where the trails are. We also put remote sensors there, and we also use aircraft. I want to stress this right now. When we're talking about using aircraft with sensors, which I flew over in Afghanistan, we have the capability to do this where we're watching overhead day or night. We can find them coming in. So they watch the border, and they watch the border only because privacy issues are extremely important to them. So watching the border only. Now, manpower, fencing, send them the bill. We're going to hire 500 more DPS troopers. We're going to use law enforcement from all over the state to join in on these joint operations. We're going to shut down the border. We did last year for 3 weeks. The exercise lasted 3 weeks. The day after 3 weeks was up, nobody came in. Why? Because they knew the border was shut, and we did it on our own. The following day, people came across, but the bad guys know when your virtual presence is actual absence. You have to be there. Fences along the whole border don't work unless they're manned. So we can do this. So I say let's do it. And we can do it without costing the state an arm and a leg, because like Duke said, it already costs $12 billion when they get here. What I'm talking about is border security, not immigration, because once they're already here, it's very difficult for people in Austin to do anything about that. What I'm talking about is the 60% of the folks who come up from Mexico who aren't Mexican. 60%. A lot of them come from Asia. They're narco-terrorists and they're human trafficking. Human trafficking for drugs, narcotics, and terrorism. Let's shut it down because it's a clear and present danger to the security of this state and our country. Thanks.
We're not going to differ much on this issue. I support Texas taking action. We've given the federal government ample time under Republican presidents, under Democrat presidents, under Republican Congresses, under Democrat Congresses, and they're not doing it. Reagan gave them amnesty, and we've learned from that mistake. We don't need to do it again. Texas has got to take the lead on this issue. There's so many things that Texas needs to take the lead on. Everything should be bigger and better in Texas, and we need to start taking the lead. And this is one of the issues we need to start taking the lead on. I support using the State Guard. I support using DPS troopers. And I support using volunteers. I know of volunteers. I've met them, many of them. They're called Minutemen. And they are ex-military, ex-law enforcement that would be more than willing to go down there and volunteer their time to defend this state and this country from invasion. And that's what's happening, folks. We're being invaded. And you don't know who's coming across the border. It has nothing to do with race. Nothing to do with race. Some of the people that are the most adamant opponents of illegal immigration are legal immigrants. So it has nothing to do with race. Don't let the left control this conversation. We have to take control of the conversation. It's about security and it's about property rights. People's property rights in South Texas are being violated. They're having people camping out on their property, running across their property, tearing up their fencing, and nobody's doing anything about it. We've got to do something about it. And that I will fight for that. If you elect me, send me to the legislature and I'll do it. Thank you.
Yeah, got ahead of myself. That's okay. Yeah, there's not a lot of disagreement on this issue. Let me tell you, Texas is growing. Our tax base is growing. We need to prioritize sealing the border. We can devote more resources to it. We can put more law enforcement on the border. I think 1 is personnel. I think 2 is physical barriers. I think 3 is technology. I have a concern with the technology on your privacy. So what I would suggest on doing with the technology is we implement a zone. You know, there's a certain zone, a border area zone where we can use technology. We can't use the technology outside of that zone. We need to purge the data to make sure it's not collected on U.S. citizens. We need to protect your privacy, but we need to secure the border. Next, the U.S. Constitution, I believe it's Article 4. Harlan, you might confirm that for me, but I believe it's Article 4 says that the federal government will protect the states from invasion, foreign invasion. So let's keep track of our bill on this and let's send it to the feds and let's sue them in federal court to collect that money for shirking their duty under the U.S. Constitution to keep us safe. This is about, more than the property rights. What I'm concerned about is narco-terrorism, narcotics entering our country, and foreign terrorists that mean to destroy the United States. And we need to make sure that does not enter the United States across the Rio Grande River.
Okay, the next one, we need to get some lights or help them so I can keep track of who's up next and who hasn't gone.
Okay.
Next question. From the Keystone XL pipeline to shale gas exploration and drilling to water issues, private property rights have become a major issue in the state of Texas. As a state representative, what is going to be your stance on private property rights, keeping in mind the state's ongoing boom in the energy sector and its impact on personal property? And Jake, you're up first.
No. Private property. So my guess is the question is about eminent domain is where we're going with this. Eminent domain. If I don't like the smartest people in the room out of Austin, all right? I bought my 10 acres because I want my 10 acres. I don't want anybody taking any part of that because I wanted my 10 acres. If I had wanted 1, then I would have wanted 1 or a half an acre. It doesn't really matter. When somebody comes along and tells me that they're going to take my property because it's for the common good, run away. And I am going to fight as hard as I humanly can. Because, already we're talking about widening the road next to where I live, and it's going to be eminent domain on my property. Well, you're going to pay a hefty fee because I didn't buy 9.5, I bought 10. So the difficulty for the state to put any pipeline or building or anything for the common good, eminent domain on my property, you're going to have to pay me fair market value plus. And it should go through a very stringent requirement system such that the folks who own the land are taken care of properly. And if they do sell their land and it's not used within a certain amount of time, and again, you all get together on defining what that is, 6 months, I think. If they don't break ground on 6 months, they give that land right back to you, plus indemnification for the time lost on whatever you're using that property for. So property rights are probably in Texas more than anywhere else. We like our privacy. We like our private property. We like property ownership and the idea that this is our little land here and we're independent from everybody else. So you start nudging into that, and I think even Governor Perry would kind of tell you that the ideas that he had in the past probably were not such good ideas after all, especially with the Trans-Texas corridor. So this is kind of similar to that, to the Keystone Pipeline. So it should be very onerous for the people who want to use your land, that they cannot take it outright. It has to go through a very stringent review process, and John, being an attorney, would know a heck of a lot better, but I want to make it as hard as possible for anybody to get anybody's land in this state. And then once the agreement has been made, not forced, but the agreement has been made, that you're getting fair market value plus. And that's the only fair way to do this. Thank you.
Property ownership. None of us have it because we don't own our property. We've already gone over this. You pay property taxes. You're paying rent for the rest of your life. Try to stop paying your property taxes, and you'll see who owns your property. That is why we don't have property rights. First and foremost, we have to end property taxes if we want true property ownership in Texas. Eminent domain. We should never, ever, ever allow the use of eminent domain for private use or private gain, private profit. Jerry's World in Arlington, perfect example. People's property was taken from them. Yes, they were compensated for it, but it was for private use, private profit. It should never be allowed. Trans-Texas corridor, same thing. It was going to be owned by a Spanish toll company for private profit. It should never be allowed. The only time eminent domain should ever be used is for public use. Public use, no private profit. So I would like to introduce a bill to ensure that no property owner, once we actually own our property and we stop paying property taxes, ever has their property taken from them by the government and given to somebody else to make money off of it. Thank you.
I want to talk to you about 3 issues related to private property rights. I've got a couple of notes on that. One is groundwater. Okay. Traditionally in Texas, we've had this concept called the ad Shalem doctrine that says you own everything from the surface of the earth to the center of the earth, under the land that you own, including groundwater. We also have in Texas what's called the rule of capture that says if you punch a hole in the earth and you find oil or you find water or whatever you find, you can pump that out as much as you want and you own it. That's still the law in Texas, but now we have these silly groundwater districts, and they actually are requiring you, if you're pumping water out of the earth to use it for anything other than domestic use, you have to meter it and actually pay for that. And I think that's ridiculous. And I think we need to get back to this traditional rule of capture. I think that's respect for property rights on groundwater, and I think we can use free market capitalism ideas on groundwater to help solve some of our water issues in the state. Next is eminent domain. I would support a buyback provision that says if government takes your land for eminent domain purposes and they don't use it within a specific period of time with a specific purpose for which they took it, then you get to buy it back. Maybe you even get to buy it back for a little bit less than the government paid you for it. We can discuss that and debate that. I would support legislation with that concept. A great example is the city of San Antonio many years ago condemned 2,500 acres to build a reservoir, Applewhite Reservoir. They never built it. It's now a Toyota dealership and a land heritage preserve. Those people that lost that land should have had the ability to buy it back. Okay. Next is regulatory takings, land use planning. If a government body comes along and applies zoning or requires a gigantic land use dedication for a thoroughfare or something like that that damages the value of your property, you should have the ability to be compensated for that. That's a regulatory taking, and I would support legislation to address that issue. Thank you.
Eminent domain, and you're the lawyer in the room, I believe was the only holdover in colonial law from the European law. It was the only one that they brought with them and said, we like that. That was under the King's law, the eminent domain. And there have been several bills filed and several laws passed in the last 8 years, last 4 sessions, that restricted eminent domain. In the last session alone, the bill that John was talking about there was actually HB20. It died in calendar committee. And it would have done exactly what it said. If the land was not used, you could buy it back. And I believe there was even a discount provision in it. HB 1250, there it is. Had to look at the number. I'm not good with numbers. I think the Tea Party guys know that. HB 1250 says that if the land is not used for the specific use that they got it for, in other words, they stole your land under eminent domain and said they were going to build a parking lot, and instead they built a Burger King. You can't do that. It has to be used for the purpose for which they did the eminent domain. And then the third one, and this is the one that I find interesting, and TJ mentioned this one, but there was actually a bill filed, SB 507, and it died for lack of a companion bill in the House, and it would have said that these things are called PS3s, and in Jerry's world is one, and it would have actually outlawed the use of eminent domain for the purpose of converting the land for private profit, okay? So eminent domain needs to be curtailed. We need to get some laws on the book. We've done a good job in the last 4 sessions on cutting it down. We need to cut it down even more and make it time. I will say this. If you look across the state, you would find that most acquisitions for public land are done through right-of-way acquisition, meaning that I tell you how much I think your land's worth, you tell me, and we negotiate and we come up with something we agree on. The actual filing of eminent domain doesn't happen as much as we think it does, but we need to curtail it. Thank you.
Let's follow that question up by concluding with a question on the state's energy policy. Without question, the energy business is booming in Texas, creating jobs and aiding our economy. What are your views on policy regulating Texas's energy? And please provide commentary on how that policy will balance the ability to provide safety measures to protect our residents and our environment. And TJ, you're up first.
First of all, we need fair and predictable regulations. We need to stop changing the regulations because these energy companies don't know from one year to the next what the laws are regarding the energy that they're producing. So what we need to do is come up with a fair and predictable energy regulation package that would that these energy producers can look at and say, we know what the laws are, and so you don't have these constant breaches of the laws. Secondly, I believe in state control of our energy. I want to get the EPA out of it. There's nothing in the Constitution that gives the federal government control over our energy. And so we need to assert our state sovereignty, get the EPA out of Texas, and let the TCEQ govern our energy. Those are the 2 things that I would like to do in Texas. Thank you.
I very much support domestic energy production, oil and gas. I think it's a security issue. I think it's important to our national security that we be energy independent. I think Texas has always been a leader in oil and gas in these United States, and we should continue to do that. And I want to support and foster the oil and gas industry in this state. I think that the second part of that is we have the TCEQ, which does a lot of environmental regulation, as you know. The TCEQ is self-funded. It derives its budget from the fines it levies. I believe that that's bad because that incentivizes the TCEQ to look for sources of revenue as opposed to just doing what is right. I mean, they have a financial stake in the way they're applying, the way they're adopting regulations and applying those because they're funding their budget. And I would like to change that so that their mandate and their instruction is really to do what is only absolutely necessary for the health and safety of Texans. and I want to be conservative in the approach to environmental regulation on the oil and gas energy. Next is electricity, which is another aspect of Texas Energy. I like our ERCOT, our deregulation and free market delivery systems. I want to continue to support that. Electricity's tough because you can't really economically store it, and I want to make sure that we're supporting the grid so that Texas consumers are getting the lowest possible energy and electric energy and delivered at the lowest possible cost, and that's what I look to support as your state representative.
As the mayor said, Texas is the #1 leader in oil and gas production in these United States, but they're also the #1 state in generation of energy from renewable sources. I didn't know that. I had to look that up. I had to read it twice. Now you think about the size that we are, I guess that kind of makes sense, but for non-hydroelectric power, we're the #1 generator of energy on renewable sources. And ERCOT has done a good job. I don't know how many of you know, does everybody know what ERCOT is? ERCOT is the grid for Texas. We have our own grid. It is us, okay? We control our grid, and technically we're not even connected to the outside grids, which has caused issues at times, but we can't bring in power from the other grids. But ERCOT is the one that controls where our energy is, how it's distributed, and where it goes. ERCOT has done a pretty good job at increasing capacity using these clean plants like Suez here in Ennis. That's a gas-fired plant, has very, very low emissions as opposed to a coal-fired plant. The American National Power in Midlothian, again, a gas-fired plant, very, very low emissions. So they've done a good job at increasing capacity and holding consumer costs down. And I'm not going to say low, because if anybody has ever compared your kilowatt hour charge to somebody in Oklahoma or Arkansas, I think you'll find that we're paying a lot more than they are. So there's a dichotomy there that needs to be worked on. If we're the largest producer in both renewable energy sources and in oil and gas, we should not be paying the highest price for the energy. So that's something that we need to work on. I'm going to agree with all three of these guys. I think they all three said it. EPA cannot dictate to us how we're going to control our issues, okay? I retired, or I took a buyout in '97 from Schlumberger, so I grew up in the oil field, and I'm a firm believer in oil and gas production here in Texas.
Don't start yet, because I think after this question, everybody's going to need to stand up and stretch. I think everybody's falling asleep. Okay, and go. Agree with John. TCEQ should not be a self-licking ice cream cone. Anybody ever heard that expression? They're the ones who exist to pay for themselves. Kind of like going through Palmer and on 45 and speed. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Let's drill, baby, drill. Let's go new. Let's do gas. Let's do coal. Let's get off the grid. Because if anything ever happens with the rest of the country, I'm proud of my state. We kind of do it on our own. I want to be on our own and be viable as a society within these borders as much as humanly possible. Now, as far as electricity, we got deregulated some years ago, and it's proven to be the #1 successful public utility state in the nation. Once they deregulated, we've got the lowest prices, and we've got a good reserve. We've got 11.75%. Huck says we need to have 13.75. So that's 2% off. We're doing okay. So anytime anybody says, well, we're 2% off on our reserve in case anything happens, we get a power grid go down or anything like that, rolling blackouts, be very careful, because what they're going to be looking for is state control. Deregulation is the way to go. It's been good for all of us. And I will oppose any desire in Austin to try to take back that very large part of our state energy process. So anyway, that's all I got. Thanks.
Moving on to our audience questions. And let's see, John, you're.
Anybody need a break? Anybody need a break? No? I saw some over there.
I only have two, so. First of two audience questions. How do you stand on the Second Amendment, and are you for open carry?
Let me tell you this. I'm a life member of the NRA. I'm a member of the Texas State Rifle Association as well. I have an AQ rating. I think we all do, actually. AQ rating is the highest rating that the NRA or the TSRA will give to a non-incumbent. I grew up in a culture of shooting sports. I spent in the late 1970s and the early 1980s. I can tell you exactly where I was on September 1, where I was watching the sun come up for about 7 or 8 years there with my grandfather and my dad sitting under a mesquite tree out in the cow pasture in South Ellis County. And I grew up in the culture of shooting sports. I believe very strongly in the Second Amendment. I will support the Second Amendment. I will fight any effort to further regulate the ownership or carrying of guns. Texas is one of only 6 states that fully prohibits open carry. 12 states permit open carry without any form of license or regulation at all, and I would support a move to bring Texas in line with other states and support open carry in the state of Texas. I would absolutely support that, and I believe that as our society continues to urbanize, and I mentioned this earlier, I think it's unfortunate that we lose some of our culture of shooting sports as we continue to urbanize. I think that's unfortunate. There's a foundation, the Friends of NRA, which tries to encourage shooting sports among youth, and because they're cognizant of the fact that urbanization is eroding that, and I would encourage you to be active in that and look into that as well. So I very much support the Second Amendment.
This is another one where folks are going to say pretty close to the same thing. I also support the Second Amendment. I would fight to the death anyone's attempt to infringe upon my right to carry a gun. I believe in the open carry. I don't have an issue with open carry. For a long time, there's a couple that have known me for a long time, I've said many times years ago, before this ever started, that if every reasonable, sane person carried a sidearm, crime would be zero. You would not rob a McDonald's if everybody in there was carrying a pistol, okay? So the trouble comes in the reasonable and sane, and that's a conundrum that I don't know that I want to talk about right now. I do want to say that handguns, long guns, assault rifles are just a nice hunting rifle with a fancy stock on it, We have no reason to ban those. None whatsoever. We have no reason to restrict the ownership on those. I will say that I do believe that the Second Amendment and the right to keep and bear arms did not include the right to keep and bear nuclear missiles. And I realize that there's a phrase called reductio ad absurdum, which means taking something all the way to the end. But I don't know that we need to allow anybody and everybody to have an RPG. I don't know that we need anybody and everybody to have sarin gas. And if we did complete deregulation, I think we'd still have to step back and say, I don't know that we meant complete deregulation. There's still going to be something in there that makes common sense that we can't let everybody have an RPG. I just think that makes sense to me. Handguns, long guns, assault rifles, open carry, you'll fight with me if you try and take any of that away from me. Likewise, I think we're all going to say we're members NRA and TSRA, and I think we're all life members. So that's my stance on the Second Amendment.
NRA, TSRA, AQ. Rome wasn't built in a day. We didn't get to the place we are in this country in a day. It's incremental. You get back to the open carry that I believe we should eventually get to. We start with CHL carriers should open carry next year, right now. As soon as we can get to Austin, pass that law, let's start with them. Additionally, on-campus carry at universities by veterans who are trained in combat arms and former first responders, police officers, law enforcement officers. Because that's how you protect a gun-free zone. It's That's where the bad guys go because they know that nobody else has one. And here in Texas, if they were to know that just about everybody might have one, nobody would even come up to the door. I don't know how counterintuitive the liberals have to be before they start to get this. But the only people who prevent tragedies like that is a well-armed civilian group of people who can carry. So let's start with that and get the veterans to carry on campus, get the law enforcement to carry on campus concealed, open carry for CHL members right now, and then we'll start working our way towards what it should be, and that's open carry. So that's how I think about it. Thanks.
Hey, y'all want to hear a really radical word these days? Militia. That's a radical word, but it's in the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Back in those days, what was the biggest armament that you could get? A cannon. And the founders believed that communities should be able to have their own cannon. The founders of this state flew a flag with a cannon on it, said, "Come and take it." That was the biggest armament of the day. So where did we come up with this idea that certain arms law-abiding citizens couldn't be trusted with them? Why can the people in this room not be trusted to have a machine gun if they want one? Why can that not be possible? Are we any less trustworthy today than we were then? Can somebody do just as much damage if they hijacked a school bus than they could with a machine gun? Shall we outlaw the school buses? It makes no sense. In order to be a true believer in the Second Amendment, you have to understand why it was written. These guys had just fought a bloody battle for their freedom and for the freedom of their posterity. And they wanted to give their posterity the means to fight for that freedom if they ever had to. And ask yourself this: if we had to fight our government today, how much of a chance would you stand with the arms that you have and the arms that they have? I have been rated with an AQ by the NRA, TSRA, but I've also been endorsed by Texas Firearm Freedom and American Gun Rights, two other Texas gun groups that are working in Texas, that have been working in the Texas legislature to restore true gun rights. And I'll fight for it in the legislature and send me there. Thank you.
Okay, final question of the evening, and then we'll have closing remarks from the candidate. And this simply says, talk about property taxes. And Duke, you're up first.
I alluded to it earlier, and there's at least two candidates here who are talking about the abolition of property taxes. I haven't heard John talk about it much, and I don't mind talking about it, okay? I still say the bugaboo in the room is the spending. If you did away with the property tax, you've got to replace at least a portion of it with something, assuming that there is some level of government that we as a society are willing to fund. So you do away with the property tax, you've got to come up with the funding to offset it. And if you come up with a clean formula, and it will offset, and it will not have any unintended consequences for the property tax. Again, the property tax isn't my bugaboo. My bugaboo is the spending and the way that we do our budgeting. You know, school budgets, I'll talk about it because I know those pretty well. I work with a $76 million budget in Midlothian. And at the start of every school year or budget cycle, and it's getting ready to start next month, we look at what the value of the district is. Again, it was $3.2 billion, and we don't know what it's getting ready to be. We look at how many students we have. We look at the state funding formula, and we crunch all that together, and our CFO comes to us and says, here's how much money we have to spend. And to me, that's wrong, because I'm in business. I run a successful business, And I'd have to look at my budget every month and say, how much is it going to cost me to pay the electric bill? How much is the phone bill? My wife's working for me now, and you know how much that costs me. Not much. I don't pay her much at all. But private enterprise, which is most of us in this room, we operate differently than government. So at Midlothian, they're going to tell us, here's your bucket of money. And it becomes the job of the bureaucrats, and I'm not using that word badly, that is what they are. They are bureaucrats. It becomes their job to spend almost all that money. Not all of it, because you don't want to go over budget. That's bad. In fact, you want to be under budget just a little bit, so that at the end of every year you can say, hey, we're under budget. I'm saying that the spending formulas, that the way that we allocate our money is the problem. And I really do have some ideas that change this, okay? That change the way that we allocate the money. So again, you know, TJ and I've talked about it, and Jake and I've talked about it, about property tax. I don't have a real issue with getting rid of it. Show me something that offsets and that it works. A wash is a wash, okay? I want to work on the spending piece of it. I want to get that under control. I want to get us spending money on what we are constitutionally authorized to spend money on, no more, no less, and do it efficiently.
Starting on this session, which is going to be the 84th, by the 86th, we can phase out completely the property tax. That's my aim. If you are 35 today, and your property tax is assessed at $5,000 this year with a 10% cap, by the time you're 65 years old, your property tax is $85,000 a year. Now, even if this thing makes sense to some of you, by 65, when you can't work anymore, let's assume you're a disabled veteran, and you can't work anymore by the time you're 50, that state's going to take your property, the property that you paid for and that it's yours. It's wrong. It's got to go. And it's got to go in the next 3 sessions. You can phase that out, and you can do it in any number of plans, but you can phase it. Currently, the state income or state sales tax is 6.25%. If you went to 8.25% today, like I said, it's a 1-for-1 swap. I'm not for that, but we can phase it in. It's going to take a little time, but there is no way that anybody can consider this fair, because it's not. So this session, if we can't get it done and get this started right now, my proposal is for veterans who have disability, they pay their property tax on their appraised value based on directly on their disability rating. If you're 70% disabled, and let's say your property tax assessment is $1,000, you pay $300, because I can guarantee you that the disabled veteran, he cannot pay that $1,000 by the time he's 55 with 70% disability. And I'm telling you, that's hurt. We start there. But over the next 3 sessions, if we get enough conservatives who want to do this, people like you who want to send people down to Austin who says enough is enough. This tax is not fair. It's wrong. We can offset it. We can make it a wash. When we get more home ownership in here, we'll have more people buying houses. We're going to have more tax money going through this state than you can possibly imagine. So it's not a 1-for-1. It's going to pay for itself very, very quickly. That's what I aim to do. Thanks.
Just said talk about taxes. Talk about property taxes.
Property tax. I love talking about property taxes. Love it, because a lot of people, whenever I say you own your property, you know, we've done it many times. Some of my supporters are in here, and every time I ask, there's hands that go up, and I say, no, you don't own your property because of property taxes. You have to pay them year after year indefinitely. You stop paying your taxes, you find out who owns your property. That's the number one reason why any freedom-loving American should be against property taxes, is because it prohibits freedom. You can't own your property, you're not free. You worked hard to pay for it. It should be yours. It shouldn't belong to somebody else. And you only get to keep it if you give them some money. That's not freedom. So we've got to end property taxes. It doesn't matter how we pay for it, how we make up for it, and all that kind of stuff. Number one, we've got to recognize that it's prohibiting true freedom in Texas. So after we get past that, then we can talk about how to make up for the lost revenue. I believe in a consumption tax. Why do I believe in a consumption tax? I talked about it before. It's cheaper than a property tax. You don't have all the costs that's associated with the property tax when you have a consumption tax. You would actually still have a tax on property, but it would be a one-time tax at the point of sale. And once your mortgage is paid off, your taxes are paid off, and you're free and clear, and you can actually own your property. Secondly, a consumption tax encourages the government to encourage a healthy economy. Because if we have more buying and selling, then the government is bringing in more revenue, and everybody's happy. So it just makes more sense. Third, it puts more control in the taxpayer's hands. If you want to pay less in taxes, then you'll consume less and be more self-sufficient. If you want to pay more in taxes, then you'll go out and buy a lot of things and pay lots of taxes. But it puts more control in your hands.
By the way, on that last question, September 1 is the opening day of dove season, so you gave me. I forgot to mention that. Anyway, back on track. On the property tax, I too am intrigued by the thought of trying to migrate away from the property tax toward a consumption tax. There's several advantages of it, some of which have been discussed. One of which that is good, which ties back to some of these immigration issues, is that everybody in the state of Texas is going to pay that tax when they consume goods or services, whether they're here legally or illegally. That's another advantage. It's very transparent. It's right there on your receipt. You can see it. You don't need a huge bureaucracy or a complicated system to collect it. It's very easy to calculate and collect. But here's the thing that I don't want to see happen. I don't want you to see your 2% per year property tax turn into a 20% sales tax when you sell your house. You know, I mean, if I were to say we can stop paying 2% a year, but when you sell your house, you got to pay 20% of the proceeds to the government, you might say no way. Okay, so I want to hear from you about that. And what I would do is try to phase this in incrementally over time, and to the extent that we can't get it all done, I want to emphasize your homestead first. I want to lower or eliminate property taxes on your homestead in favor of a consumption tax. And then once we get that done, then we move to the business personal property tax or non-homestead real property tax. But I don't want to switch this out for a sales tax on your house because I think that would make you angry. And I think that's the catch that isn't discussed. So I would like to do this. I want to do it. I want to be reasonable and rational about it. But I don't want to create a sales tax on your homestead when you sell.
Okay, we're going to wrap up with closing comments, and Jake, you're up first.
I am.
According to my notes.
All right. Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I think we were pleasantly surprised by the number of folks who have been here. I'd like to thank everybody who's involved with it. Ellis County Republican Women, Dan and Neil for coming out and helping us out here. And most importantly, the three men who are standing up here with me. Gosh, they're such good guys. Hopefully this is a hard choice for everybody here, because if it is, then everybody up here is good and qualified, and they'll make this district proud. So it's an honor for me to stand up here with you guys, and I appreciate it. So my name is Jake Elsey. I've been serving our country since I was 18 years old. Now I'd like to serve this district and this state in the state legislature. For 25 years, I've been taking an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Foreign enemies are easy to spot because you see tracer fire coming up at you. This administration uses pen and fiat to take away some of the freedoms that are guaranteed to you in the Constitution. So my mission, as I now see it, is to stop them, restore that which is yours, and ensure that this state and this district are the best places to live, raise a family, and do business. So let me tell you what I believe. I believe in the power of prayer. I believe in God, family, and country in that order. I believe in protecting the life of the unborn. I believe that you should have every right to arm and defend yourself and those that you love. I believe gun control consists only of hitting your target. I believe your property is your property. Nobody should ever be able to take it. I believe farmers and ranchers should have every opportunity to take the water that's on the surface and beneath the surface, and it's there. I believe that people of faith should be able to pray anytime, anywhere, and that includes schools. I believe that our children should say the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States of America and to Texas every day in school, and they should say it in English. I believe that the margins tax is a bad thing, it needs to go away. I believe your private information is your private information. The only way anybody should ever be able to get a hold of that is with a warrant that they show you. I believe I should have the right to choose the school that my children get to go to. I believe in increasing the pay of teachers and freezing the hiring of administrators. I believe that if you educate your children at home, you shouldn't be penalized when it's time to go to college. I believe we should have more $10,000 college educations in this state than we currently do. I believe the best days are yet to come in this country. I believe government should do a few things efficiently, well, better, and then stop after that. I believe in duty, honor, accountability, and service down there in Austin. My name is Jake Elsey. I appreciate your vote. God bless Texas. God bless the United States. Let's roll.
Well, thank you all for coming out here. We've got too many empty seats in here. The room should have been packed and overflow. Government is only a symptom of the problem in this country. The problem in this country is apathy. The problem is that in this country is complacency. The problem in this country is ignorance. Hosea 4:6 says, "My people perish from lack of knowledge." The reason why this country is dying is because there are not enough knowledgeable people out there who will go out and inform themselves on the issue. So I can sit here and tell you all night long the things that I stand for and the things that I believe in. But I would much rather that you do the research on your own. Find out what each of us has stood for. Find out what each of us has been fighting for. And I believe you'll find that for the last 6 years since I woke up, since I've stopped being apathetic and complacent and ignorant, because I was part of the problem for so long, I have been fighting for less government, more freedom. I believe that the role of government is to protect three things: your life, your liberty, and your property. That means every human life, every innocent human life in this state should be protected. And the fact that they're not makes us an uncivilized society. We need to lead the charge. Texas needs to lead the charge. We've made big strides, huge strides this last session, but we need to do more. We need to work towards outlawing abortion in Texas because it's an inhumane practice. It's murder. It's murder of the most innocent of our society that deserve protection. And we're murdering them in the safest place that they should ever live, in their own mother's womb. And we're allowing it under our laws. What kind of society does that make us? We've got to stop it, folks. We're allowing this government to take away our freedoms. The First Amendment right is being violated in many major cities. You have to obtain a permit to go and protest against your government. That says that it's a government-granted right, not a God-given right. I believe it's a God-given right. There's guns, certain weapons that are being outlawed, that have been outlawed. You have to go and obtain a permit to carry a handgun on your side in Texas. That says that it's a government-granted right, not a God-given right. I believe it's a God-given right. And we need to look at it like a God-given right. That means you don't have to get a permit to arm yourself. And I can go down the list and name one right after another that's being violated in the state of Texas. And our founding fathers would be rolling over in their graves if they knew that we were allowed. I'm asking you to put all your politics aside and vote for me. Send me to Austin, and I will fight for these things. I guarantee you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight and participating in this important process. Thanks to Neil and to Dan for hosting and moderating. And I want to thank Duke and Jake and TJ for showing up tonight and participating and sharing their thoughts on the future of Texas. Texas is a special place. We are under attack from an overreaching and intrusive federal government. We have a social welfare fiasco dubbed Obamacare, which the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office says will kill 2.3 million jobs by the year 2021. I want to, well, this shouldn't surprise us with Obamacare because we've got a federal government that for roughly 80 years has adhered to a philosophy of if it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. If it stops moving, subsidize it. We need to make sure that we protect Texas from these bad habits of the federal government and make sure we don't fall into these same habits here in Texas. I want to go to Austin and work with other conservatives to stop the erosion of our values here in Texas. I want to enact legislation to keep growth of Texas government in check and to ensure we will continue to respect property rights. I will work to implement fiscally responsible solutions to the roadway and water infrastructure needs of a growing population. Every decision I make regarding education will put students first, and I will work to allow teachers to be creative and teach fundamental skills, individualism, patriotism, and not just how to take a standardized school system accountability test. I will work to stop the flow of drugs and terrorists across our border, and I will seek to hold the federal government accountable for shirking its constitutional duty to protect us from invasion. I will assert state rights through aggressive and well-reasoned legislation that pushes back against the intrusive federal mandates from President Obama, and I will show him that his pen and his phone are no match for our Constitution. I would ask for your vote in the upcoming election. My name is John Ray. I want a chance to represent you. I am the best choice for this job because I have benefited so greatly from our Texas system and the liberties and the opportunities it has afforded me. My life began almost 44 years ago, the only child of a couple who was 19 years old when they found out I was on the way. I spent 8 years living in a mobile home park. Through public education, through self-reliance, and through hard work, I bettered myself. I was able to get experience, get an education, start my own businesses, and raise a family. I know how important that is, and I want to protect that right for you, your kids, and your grandkids, and for all future generations of Texas, and I humbly ask for your support.
Hopefully, you've found that you have 4 pretty decent choices tonight. Hopefully, you found that District 10 can field some good candidates. And I'm not going to tell you what all these things that I am. I've told you a little bit about me here. I'm going to tell you a couple of things that I am not. I will not pander. That means I will not tell you what I think you want to hear. You can ask the Tea Party on their vetting session. Go watch it. I stand behind every answer I gave. You got an 88, you got an 87, I got a 54.
I got 0.
Yeah, TJ, I wasn't going to say that. Because I answered the questions honestly. What I am not is somebody that'll look you in the face and lie to you. What I am is somebody that would love to sit down and talk to you, find out what you think, find out where we agree, and guess what? Find out where we disagree. And disagree honestly. And maybe you change my mind. I don't know. I'm nothing special. I don't want to be anything. I don't want to be something. I don't want to go down to Austin and be the big wig down there. I'm just me. I'm just a common man. Grew up in Grand Prairie in the funeral business, and you think that's not interesting. You need to do that sometime. Grew up in the funeral business. Noticed early on that we were taking rich people and poor people and white, brown, yellow, polka dot people, and every single one of them, we were digging a hole in the ground. We were putting them in it. We were covering them up. I was 8 years old when I realized that I was going to die. That's an awful young age to figure that out. I'm 57 years old right now. You want to worry about somebody going to Austin and staying there the rest of their life? I may not live all that much longer. 57, you know. I was hoping somebody'd use age because I was all ready to give Reagan's famous line. I love that line. You remember that one in Reagan's debate when they talked about him being the oldest, if he is elected, the oldest president ever to take the oath of office? He said, I'm not going to bring up that. I'm not going to allow age to become part of this discussion. I refuse to talk about my opponent's youth and experience. I did like the line. It was good. My cell phone's on my Facebook page. My cell phone's on my website. You want to talk to me? You want to find out where I am? Call me. Let's talk it over. Let's see what's happening. I promise you, I'm not taking money from special interests. I'm not ruled by anybody. The Democrats aren't going to tell me what's going to happen. The Republicans aren't going to tell me what's going to happen. The Tea Party's not going to tell me what's going to happen. I'm me, and I'm one of you. Thank you for your support.
I'd like to express appreciation to all 4 of our District 10 candidates for agreeing to come out to this forum. Thank you all. How about a big hand for our 4 candidates? Before we adjourn, just a couple more quick announcements. I want to remind everybody we still have 2 forums coming up. February 18th, Waxahachie Civic Center. February 28th, Midlothian Conference Center. The questions